And like I said, we have an exciting day, Cardinals Day, and we welcome Ben back again to talk about his book and many more exciting things that are going on with the Cardinals. Thank you again for coming back and joining us, and I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Hello. Hello, everybody.
Mute my audio.
I hope you all are doing well. I'm really fired up. I'm kind of like a 10-year-old boy excited about this weekend. We've got Cardinals Cubs for 3 games and 2 Blues playoff games. So I'm just really giddy, if I may. So please excuse my gid, I suppose. But yeah, I just wanted to thank you all first of all for joining me. Welcome to my, I don't know what you would call this. Some people call it a man cave. I just call it my room of St. Louis crap, but I love it. And I do a morning video every day for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch from this very seat. My name is Ben Hochman, and it's on at 10 a.m., so I call it 10 Hochman. And I see some of our longtime viewers in the audience here already, and I apologize for any of my zaniness that you will have to endure for the next 45 minutes to an hour. Benjamin Hochman, St. Louis Post-Dispatch sports columnist, and I wrote a book. I'm really proud of it. I want to share it with you all today. The name of the book is 11 in 11, and it's the story of the 2011 St. Louis Cardinals. And honestly, like, I'm crazy biased, and St. Louis is my town, and I love St. Louis, but I would venture to say that this is one of the best baseball stories, just in baseball history, let alone the fact that it's our team and our town's team. And yes, a shameless plug here, but if you would be interested in the book, there's a website, 11in11book.com, 11in11book.com. It's very easy to navigate, very easy. Just click on there, and I can even personalize it and send it to your home or send it to a friend for Father's Day or what have you. So yeah, this book was kind of a labor of love. It's my 4th published book, and you love them all, but this one took a lot of special energy out of me, if only because I wrote it during the pandemic, and we had just had our baby. So no sleep at night, writing during the day, writing during the night, no sleep, the whole thing. And I'm pretty sure it ended up in English. I'm not give it a read, and we'll see what language came off my fingers. But yeah, I'm really proud of this book. Over 60 people are quoted in it, and basically the idea was this: Rick Hummel and Tony La Russa wrote a book about the 2011 World Series right after it happened. It was a great book. And there's been so many documentaries on MLB Network and articles written about the 2011 Cardinals that I wanted to write something that hadn't been written before. I had to motivate myself to tell some stories that were new, to find stories that were new, and also give different takes, if you will, different perspectives on the stories that we already know. I think one thing that's pretty cool about the 2011 St. Louis Cardinals and Game 6 of the World Series is that we are all connected by that game. Raise your hand if you don't mind, if you remember where you were for Game 6, where you were watching the game. Most hands are up. And that's the thing, is like, it's a happy memory, it's the opposite of kind of the morbid memory when some people would ask you where you were when JFK died. A lot of people can share that memory. Oh my gosh, I was here, I was there. And that's a sad memory. With this, it's the opposite. It's a happy memory. Where were you for Game 6? And everybody's got a story. Robert Braun was in Big Mac land, apparently. I'm reading right here in the chat. I was in literally the last row of right field in the bleachers. And in this book, so it happened in 2011. It was the Cardinals' 11th World Series championship. So the name of the book is 11 in 11. And Game 6 went 11 innings. So I have 11 chapters in the book. And at the end of each chapter, I have a Game 6 story. Now, the book is the story of the team, the whole, starting from spring training all the way through the parade, if you will. But at the end of each chapter, I have a Game 6 story, and these were some of my favorite things to write because I wanted to find unique stories, and you can find them in the book. And I'll share some of them today. But I mean, for instance, you have the governor of Missouri, Jay Nixon, who was in Shanghai on a trade mission, trying to follow the St. Louis Cardinals in the World Series while speaking through an interpreter in Chinese to these business people. You've got a St. Louis guy who was in the Navy, and he was literally in a submarine trying to follow Game 6 while serving our country. There's a woman based in St. Charles, and I interviewed her, and some people say I have some energy, but she has more energy than I do. And she was around 80 years old when the World Series happened. And she calls herself the Dancing Granny. She's the Dancing Granny. And when they when Freese hit the home run, her daughter videotaped her, and there's some amazing dances that she's doing, and it was just so fun. And it went, as they say, went viral on the internet. Everyone saw the video of her. So I interviewed her to get her memories of it. And my favorite one, I guess, is the guy who left Game 6 early. There was a guy, and small world. I went to Clayton High School here in town, and one of my favorite teachers was Larry Baker, the energetic Larry Baker, the history teacher. And sure enough, his son, Tim Baker, made the ill-fated decision to leave Game 6 in the seventh inning. He wanted to get home. They just had a baby. He talked himself out of it. The Cardinals were losing by 3 runs. He wanted to beat traffic. He makes, I had him on the witness stand, if you will, and he made some good points and broke it down. But the reality is he was driving on Highway 40. Do people drive like this? I don't know. They drive like this. He was driving on Highway 40 when all the fun stuff happened with David Freese and the triple. So I wanted to share those stories in the book too. So yeah, right away, when you look at, if you don't know, I'll just give you a quick recap of what happened. The St. Louis Cardinals in 2011 were 10 and a half games out of the playoffs on August 25th. That is a significant amount of games played. If that happened this year, we would say season's over. Season's over. They blew it. Another season lost. This is frustrating. And but the Cardinals didn't give up. And there's a couple amazing stories. Of course, Chris Carpenter, the great pitcher who wrote the foreword to the book. Oh, this is kind of fun. So yeah, I've got Chris Carpenter, the starting pitcher of Game 7, wrote the foreword, and Jason Mott, the closer, the relief pitcher, closes the book out with closing remarks. So you're probably saying, wow, Benjamin, that's pretty creative. You coming up with that? Well, it kind of fell into my lap, and here's why. Jason Mott, the closer, I'd gotten to know him over the years emceeing his charity event. And so I knew him a little bit. So I asked him to write the foreword to the book. Closer, famous guy. And he's like, yeah, just send me some information and I'll write it up. Sure. And I did. And I didn't hear back from Jason Mott. Now he's busy. He's whatever. We're all busy. But I didn't hear back from him. And I was kind of getting frustrated. I needed someone on the Cardinals to write the foreword to the book. Finally, and the editor's like, the deadline's tomorrow. Who's going to do your foreword? And finally, I'm like, all right, because I kept reaching back out to Mott, and he wouldn't reach back to me. I don't know if it was something I said. Now I feel like I'm dating. Like, what did I say to Jason Mott to make him not return my call about the foreword for the book? And finally, I was like, I need somebody else. So I reached out to Chris Carpenter, and I go, Chris, will you write the foreword for my book? And he says, what's a foreword? And so I'm like, well, let me explain it to you, Chris. It's the opening part of the book, blah, 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 blah. He's like, sure, I'll do it. And literally 2 hours later, I get a message from Jason Mott, and I call him. He's like, hey, I'm ready to do that book thing. Let's do that book thing. I'm like, oh, my God. I just gave it to Carpenter. Where were you the last 27 days when I've been reaching out to you? are you working on it? Are you cheating on me with another Cardinals book? What is happening here? And so anyway, then I was like, well, I can't pass this up, though. I got the closer for the World Series championship team offering to write something for the book. So I had him do the closing remarks, and I had Carpenter do the opener, the foreword. And as if I planned it, it worked out perfectly. So anyway, so that's what happened there for the book. And yeah, so the Cardinals were 10 and a half games out on August 25th. The season was over. And Chris Carpenter, the starting pitcher, holds a meeting. And he tells the team to start playing with passion. You're wearing the St. Louis Cardinals birds on the bat across your chest. Play like you deserve to wear that. And similarly, a day before, and this is in the book, Adam Wainwright gave a speech at the Night of the Cauliflower Ears banquet. So it's a local banquet, and he stood up, and Wainwright, and a lot of people forget this, Wainwright was injured that year. He was going through surgery. He did not pitch for the 2011 Cardinals, yet he calls himself the team's number one cheerleader. And he got his varsity letter in cheerleading that year, and he was so into it. And he gave this rousing speech at that dinner, and it was just kind of like, why not us? Why not us? We have a lot of talent. We have Albert Pujols, Yadier Molina, Lance Berkman. We've got a great team. Why not us? And they went on, of course, an amazing run in the month of September. Now, of course, if I was, or I wonder if there's the me of Atlanta who's giving a similar speech right now about the collapse of the Atlanta Braves that very same month. Because for the Cardinals to do well, the Braves had to fall apart. And I guess that speech would be a little more boring, a little more frustrating in Atlanta. But the Cardinals just got hot. And I wanted to capture kind of why that was in the book. And I interviewed a lot of the ball players. And the theme was cohesiveness and chemistry. And Skip Schumacher, the Cardinals player, said, even if we didn't win the World Series, that was my favorite group of guys I was ever around. And there's something to be said about chemistry and just the way you feel heading into a game, heading into tough times like the Cardinals were 10 and a half games out. And because they weren't playing well, they'd had some injuries, things like that, but because they believed in each other, and because frankly, they just simply liked each other. There wasn't much negative energy going on around that clubhouse, even though the record and the standings might have suggested there was. And they turned it around and they fed off each other. And what was neat about that team is Lance Berkman, who he and I maybe don't see eye to eye politically, but he can sure hit a baseball. And he was very important for that team. Lance Berkman was, not just for his hitting, but for his, leadership in the clubhouse. And the cool thing about that Cardinals team was that everybody got along. A lot of times, and I've covered professional sports for a while now, you sometimes see factions in a locker room, and sometimes it's the Dominican players over here and the American players over here, American born. But this Cardinals team was all for one for all. Octavio Dotel, he was one of the most beloved players on the team. There was so much love, and Lance Berkman, this guy had so much to do with it. And he was just a goofball. One of the stories I told in the book that I'll share with you, a story that hadn't been told before that kind of captures just how a little different Lance Berkman was. Comes from when he was the top prospect in the Houston Astros organization. So you think about Dylan Carlson now in the St. Louis Cardinals. I don't know how much you all watch the current team, but he's the top prospect. I guess he's not a prospect anymore. He's on the team, but he was the number one player in the organization, and now he's a great player for the St. Louis Cardinals. So you have to imagine Lance Berkman as Dylan Carlson for Houston all those years back. They're in AAA. He had an injury, so he was out for a couple weeks. And again, we're talking about this millionaire ball player. The hopes of the whole town are with this guy. He's the future. He's the savior. And one day, so he's playing on the New Orleans minor league team. And the New Orleans minor league squad had, they were called the Zephyrs, the New Orleans Zephyrs, and they had two mascots. They were both nutrias. And you had Boudreaux, the nutria, and then Boudreaux's wife was Clotilde, the mascot. And they're both these, 8 foot tall Fredbird type things, except they were nutrias. And I don't know what happened. Maybe the person that was supposed to be Clotilde was celebrating Passover that day and didn't come to work. But there was only Boudreaux out there, and the Clotilde mascot was just sitting down near the clubhouse. Lance Berkman, again, the star prospect, spots Clotilde and says, "I'm doing it." And he puts on the huge mascot outfit, and the number one prospect in the organization is out there as Clotilde, dancing around and playing with the kids and touching people's heads and just being ridiculous. And no one knows it's him. And finally, and as Lance Berkman shares the story with me, apparently, like, he has a certain way he walks, and someone was like, "Is it possible that that's Berkman in there?" In the dugout, and someone's like, "Hey, Lance," and he kind of turns around and gives away that it's him. Well, word gets to the manager of the team, and of all people, the manager was former St. Louis Cardinals catcher Tony Pena on the 1987 Cardinals, and Tony Pena, who went to the World Series. And he finds out that the team's millionaire top prospect is dancing around in a mascot outfit, and he goes nuts, and he's screaming into the stands. Imagine like what the fans are thinking. He's like, "Get down here, get down here." And they're like, "Why is Tony Pena screaming at the mascot? What is happening?" But he didn't want Lance Berkman to trip and fall and injure himself even more in the mascot thing. So that kind of sums up the kind of guy that Lance Berkman is. Clearly, he's a great hitter. But he's also just a great goofball. And that really helped infuse the St. Louis Cardinals in 2011. And he wasn't the only one. They had Nick Punto, the shredder. I don't know if you remember reading or hearing about Nick Punto, but his shtick was after a big win, he would literally meet the game savior on the field and rip his shirt off. And that's why David Freese's jersey that's in the Hall of Fame is ripped because the shredder Nick Punto would do that, and he would do this to people. We saw it. We as the fans and the media saw it at the ball game. He would do it at the team hotel. He'd sneak up on a rookie from behind him and just yank his shirt off. Kyle McClellan said, he's a pitcher, quoted in the book. He said some of the guys started purchasing those Western style shirts because they were snaps as opposed to buttons. So if Punto was to come behind you and rip it off, it wouldn't break the buttons and your shirt wouldn't be ruined. And then, it's silly and it's childish, but it's kind of like what the ball players do. And they really enjoyed it. And they would all go to dinner. And here's a story from the 2011 Cardinals during that run. And again, 10.5 back, the season was over, and they're cohesive and they're loving each other's energy. And they're at this dinner, and I had never heard of this concept, but apparently there's a game called credit card roulette. I don't know if you know credit card roulette, but the way they would play it is at the end of a dinner, every player, and there are coaches too, every person puts his credit card into the pile. And then somebody picks the credit cards out. Whichever credit card, not looking at the names, just like random, picking it out. Whichever card remains on the table last is the card they use to pay for the entire meal. So if it's just, me and Linda and Nancy going to dinner, it's not the end of the world if one of the three of us gets our card picked in credit card roulette. But if it's 18 St. Louis Cardinals at a steakhouse in Milwaukee with a bunch of wine and a bunch of steaks suddenly the bill is really big. And yeah, some of the Cardinals were millionaires, but some of them, like Skip Schumacher, were making the league minimum. And they had this one particular dinner during the run in Milwaukee, like I said, and I don't know, he didn't remember the exact amount of people, but I think he said there was over 20 at this long table, and they're playing credit card roulette. And Schumacher said he was more nervous during this game than he was during Cardinal games because he's thinking back to his wife and his young kids. And yeah, he makes Major League Baseball league minimum, but when you got the house and you got the cars and you got the kids, you don't want to be spending, whatever it was, thousands and thousands of dollars on a steakhouse bill. Meanwhile, it comes down to Skip Schumacher, and Kyle Loesch, who had just signed a $40 million contract. So Schumacher's like praying, and everyone's laughing. And luckily for Schumacher, Loesch was the one that had to pay the bill, or else Schumacher might have returned home and to divorce papers or something like that. I don't know. But it was just a really fun story. And again, kind of captures the team. And they did it. Game 162. Chris Carpenter, who wrote the foreword, even though he doesn't know what a foreword is, he wrote the foreword of the book, and he was the winning pitcher on game 162 at Houston. And the Cardinals made the playoffs miraculously. And and I don't know if you remember it. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you remember it, but it was just one of those moments where it's like they're playing so well, and they made the tournament, right? They're in the tournament. Anything can happen once you're in the playoff tournament. And we saw that. And the stories, I mean, it's just crazy to think, like, even just the story of the National League Division Series against Philadelphia is amazing, or even just the one against Milwaukee, or just the World Series. The fact that they all happened in that magical October of 2011 was just so cool. And some more stories from the book I'd love to share with you. Obviously, I'm not telling you all the stories from the book. So when we're done here, you're not like, I don't need to buy that book. I don't need to read that book. He just said it to me. So, but I'm not pressuring you to buy the book. No pressure to buy the book. I'm just saying, I'm not going to tell you everything in the book right now. All right, so let's talk about have you heard the story of the magical fruit snacks? The magical fruit snacks. Now, I was just in Denver, and I brought up this story to some people, and they're like, wait, magical fruit snacks? That has a different meaning here in Denver. So no, I'm not talking about that stuff. I'm talking literally about Welch's fruit snacks. And as the story goes, two guys I'd mentioned before, Kyle McClellan and Adam Wainwright, they were both injured, and they weren't playing. And they're sitting in the clubhouse during one of the early games against Philadelphia. The Cardinals are losing. And Wainwright's like, you know what? We need some juju. We need some good vibes. And he grabs a packet of Welch's fruit snacks and tosses it to McClellan and says, here, eat these. We need some runs. McClellan's like, well, whatever. He puts them in, and as the story goes, like, as the fruit snack like hits the esophagus, the Cardinal hit a triple and drives in a run, and suddenly the Cardinals are hitting again. And they're like, oh my God, it's the fruit snacks. It has to be the fruit snacks. So they're chowing down on these things. They win that game. They win the next game. And again, these guys aren't playing. They're injured. So they don't have to worry, I guess, about nutrition. And they're just eating. I guess luckily it wasn't like M&Ms or something like that. But still, the fruit snacks, you know, there's a lot of sugar in those. And they're just devouring these things for weeks and weeks and weeks, because whenever the Cardinals needed runs, they were providing the runs by eating the magical fruit snacks. And it went all the way through the World Series, and McClellan said that he had literally thousands and thousands of calories of fruit snacks, but it was all worth it because they won the World Series. Thanks, of course, to clutch hitting, amazing pitching, but most importantly, of course, the fruit snacks. I just love that story, and it's pretty silly. It's just kind of sums it all up. So the Cardinals were playing the Philadelphia Phillies in this series. And another story from the book that you might not have heard is from the general manager of the Philadelphia Phillies. So he knew the aforementioned Nick Punto, the shredder, the Cardinals player. He knew him because Nick used to be on the team. And they were chit-chatting in September, not the playoffs in October, but in September during a season. And basically they're talking about the playoffs, the upcoming playoffs. And the Phillies were going to have 100 wins. They were going to be the best team on paper in the National League. And their general manager told Nick Punto, he goes, I'm hoping we get you guys in the playoffs. And Nick's like, why? He's like, well, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, the Braves are probably better than you. I mean, you guys are good, don't get me wrong, but we'd rather play you guys if it happened that way. So what did Nick Punto do? He tells his teammates, he tells Skip Schumacher, his great friend, he goes, the Phillies want us. They think we're not that good. And they just kind of remembered that. And sure enough, who did the Cardinals play in that series? The Phillies. Now, you take that anger from the players, you take the magic of the fruit snacks, and you take the amazingness of Chris Carpenter's pitching in Game 5, and what happens? The St. Louis Cardinals win the series, and they go on to play the rival Milwaukee Brewers in the next round, and they beat them too. And kind of a fun fact, not I don't know if everyone knows this. Everyone remembers David Freese from the World Series, of course, but David Freese was also the most valuable player of the National League Championship Series, the series before the World Series. And another Cardinal had done that. That was Darrell Porter, did that in 1982. A very cool accomplishment to be the MVP of both of those playoff series. And the David Freese story it's just pretty incredible when you consider the fact that he could have been from anywhere. But if he did what he did for the Cardinals in that World Series, he would have been our guy forever. He could have been from Botswana, but if he ended up on the Cardinals and hit those triples and homers, he'd be our guy forever. But he's from St. Louis. He's from Wildwood. We saw him at the mall. You know, he was in the stands in 1996 for the Dimitri Young triple as a young boy for the Cardinals in the playoffs. He used to go to the batting cage called the infield, where he would just, he'd be in there with his other kids just taking pitches. And he was the Willy Wonka lottery ticket winner. He was the one that made the Cardinals. And how cool is that, right? Even just that is an amazing thing. For a local kid to make the majors is amazing, let alone to make the Cardinals, his team, is just a surreal experience. Then you consider the history he made. It really is just mind-boggling. And David Freese is a really fascinating guy, and I wrote a lot about him in this book. And I don't know how much you know about him, but he did these superhuman things. But he is brutally human too. He battles with demons. He battles with alcoholism, and he's open about that. And he dealt with a lot of pressure after the World Series because of just the overwhelmingness of it all. And what's interesting about it and what's special about it is that because David Freese now speaks out about battling demons, he has touched Cardinals fans again. And there are some Cardinals fans, and his best friend in the book had a great quote. He's like, he's touched fans twice, one for the World Series, but one for fans that were going through tough stuff. And they said, man, if David Freese can get through this, if he can navigate this, and he can be honest about it, maybe I can too. And his friend said, I don't know how many lives he saved, but you have to think that he affected many, or at least some in the St. Louis area. And that's really special. And when you think about Game 6, again, the Cardinals were down 3-2 in the World Series. And I think a really good way to put it in perspective that we can relate to is with the St. Louis Blues. So we're talking here about the Cardinals' opponent, the Texas Rangers. The Rangers had never won the World Series, but they had been around for decades. So the Rangers fans in the year 2011 were a lot like Blues fans here in St. Louis in the year 2019, when the team is making the run and they make the Stanley Cup final, and you're like, this is our year. And a lot of fans have said, I've been waiting literally my entire life, and I've been following this team my entire life. And this is my chance for them to win the championship. So if you think back to where you were mentally about the Blues in 2019, that's where Texas fans were mentally on the night of Game 6, when the Rangers needed to just win the game, and they win the World Series. And they did their part, right? They were winning by 2 runs in the 9th inning, and they had their fireballing, fast-pitching closer out there on the mound. And the Cardinals were down to, they had 2 outs, and they were down, of course, to 2 strikes. And the batter was David Freese, St. Louis native. And I explain it like this. He hits this triple, and I'm it's kind of cold in here, but I'm getting goosebumps regardless, just thinking about the David Freese triple. And what was so special about that experience, when he hits the ball and it looks like the guy's going to catch it, and he doesn't. And then the ball's just rolling around, and you know what's going to happen, but you know the game's not over, and you know that the Cardinals, 2 guys are scoring runs. That exhilaration that we experienced as St. Louisans is something that you just can't recreate. I mean, think about it. Down to their last strike. So I mentioned the Rangers fans, they're despondent. But then you think about the St. Louisans, like that's an experience that you all got to have that cannot be replicated. It's just a unique experience. And it's kind of like, doesn't matter how much money you have, you can't purchase the David Freese triple experience. You can't drink it or get it in a narcotic or a pill or anything. It's just something you had to live through organically, like you did in 2011. And again, it's something we all share. On this, everybody on this Zoom, everybody in this town shares Game 6 and that feeling. It's a pretty cool feeling. I interviewed a lot of people, over the years about Game 6, and one of my favorite stories is from the actor Don Draper, who played Don Draper on Mad Men. Of course, John Hamm, who's from St. Louis, went to John Burroughs High School, and it was kind of cool talking to him. It had to be weird for him talking to me because it was one of the rare occasions where John Hamm wasn't the most handsome person in the conversation. But I'm sure he persevered during that discussion with me. And we chatted about Game 6. I go, where were you, John Hamm, for Game 6? He goes, I was on the set of our show, Mad Men. And I was draped in, not a bad pun, he's Don Draper, but he's like, I was draped in 1960s outfits, and I was on the set. And as soon as they said cut, I sprinted down the hall to my trailer. And actually, it wasn't his trailer. It was another guy's trailer who played Stan Rizzo, the actor Jay Ferguson, because Jay Ferguson was a Texas Rangers fan. He's from the Dallas area. And these two guys are again, dressed as if it's 1960 whatever, and they're watching the 2011 World Series in this little trailer, and every pitch, every moment, and then there's a knock on the door, like, Ham, we need you, Ferguson, we need you. They're like, oh my God, and they run back out, and they go, and then there's an action, and they're like, oh, Don Draper, blah, 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 and they're acting, and then they say cut, and then they run back down, and they watch more of the World Series, and they're going back and forth, and luckily for John Hamm, they were in the trailer both when the David Freese triple happened and when the David Freese home run happened. And he said Jay Ferguson was despondent, and just like David Freese was cheering, John Hamm was cheering. So that's a fun one. And a personal story was, so I went to I came back to town. So I was a reporter in Denver at the time. I came back to St. Louis, and whenever I would come back, I would go to Carl's Drive-In on Manchester. I don't know if any of you know that place. Just phenomenal burgers, And obviously, I'm sitting at this level purposely so you can't see my belly, but my belly is burger filled. And Carl's Drive-In is maybe my favorite burger here in town. So of course I went there the day of Game 6. I was living in Denver and I flew in for the game. And Carl's is just, you got these, it's just a counter. And then in the middle is where they make the burgers. And then on the other side is just another counter. It's very small. Also, by the way, there's just like a mile away, there's a Carl's Deli over there by DeMun and Clayton. How many times do you think there's been a miscommunication for a lunch? And someone's like, yeah, let's have lunch at Carl's. Yeah, I'll meet you at Carl's. And then one guy goes to Carl's Drive-In, one guy goes to Carl's Deli, and they're on the phone like, where are you? I'm at Carl's. Like, I'm at Carl's. And then their heads are about to explode. I'm sure that's happened. Anyway, I was at Carl's Drive-In, and I recognized the fella right across from me. I know that guy. Who is that guy? Yes, that's Jason Mott, the relief pitcher for the St. Louis Cardinals. And I just kind of remembered, I think I did like a head nod, like a cool guy head nod, I didn't want to be like, hey, Jason, good luck in the game tonight. I just wanted to be like, I see you, man. And years later, I interviewed Jason, and I was like, you were at Carl's Drive-In, right? And he's like, yeah, it was weird because I was supposed to meet Chris Carpenter, and he went to Carl's Deli. No, I'm just kidding. I made that part up. No, but he was there, and he's telling me the story, and he's saying, yeah, here's what happened. I go to Carl's Drive-In for the day of Game 6, and the nice lady behind the counter says, she didn't say if, she said, when you guys win the game tonight, you have to come back tomorrow for lunch on Game 7, because it's going to be good luck. And Jason Mott's like, all right. And so he goes the day of game 6 when I saw him. And then he went back the day of game 7, had the exact same order, the cheeseburger, the fries, and the frosty mug, delicious drink, root beer. And sure enough, he was on the mound in the 9th inning, and he got the save. Or it actually wasn't a save. It was four runs. My man Lewis Levy, who knows more about baseball than anybody in town, you probably heard that, Lewis, right? No, it wasn't a save. It wasn't a save. It was 4 runs. But nevertheless, Jason Mott was on the mound, and he got the final out in the World Series. And again, it wasn't. Maybe you could say it was because of the talent of the players, but it was really because of the cheeseburgers and the fruit snacks. Let's be honest here. That's why the Cardinals won it all that year. And yeah, David Freese's home run to win game 6 in the 11th inning. There's just something magical, kind of cool about the number 11. It was the 11th inning. They were trying to win their 11th World Series in the year 2011. The name David Freese has 11 letters in it. It's kind of a cool thing. And he hit that ball to center field, and it landed on what I call Freese's lawn, that green grass area there. And one of the 60 people interviewed for the book is the guy that got the ball. He ran out there and jumped on it, and his buddy was there too. And if you watch the video, I slowed it down, and you can see his buddy slips and slides down the hill and basically lands on his friend who's holding the David Freese ball. So they had a cool moment there, and he hops up and they hug each other. And again, it was just pandemonium. And just the fact that we as St. Louisans, whether we were on a couch at our home, in the last row of the bleachers, in Big Mac land, on a submarine in the Navy, in a trailer in Hollywood doing Mad Men, wherever we were, we had that experience of game 6 twice. David Freese did it for us. And it's something that can't be recreated and we'll always have. And one of David Freese's best friends, a guy named Dan Krieghauser, shared this story for the book. Now, a lot of people have probably heard that David Freese was sleeping on Dan Krieghauser's couch during the playoffs. What happened, and if you hadn't heard that, this part of the story is kind of known, but even if you haven't heard, I'll say it now. But Freese was moving into a new apartment in the Central West End, and for whatever reason, the cable TV, we're talking 2011, wasn't set up yet. And the guy's like, yeah, we can get it done in about 2 weeks. He's like, oh my God, 2 weeks? How am I going to go 2 weeks without cable? So his buddy was like, just stay at my place. We can watch cable. And he does. And the Cardinals start winning in September. And now, superstition-wise, he's got to stay there. And he wasn't sleeping on a bed. He was sleeping on a couch. The third baseman for the St. Louis Cardinals was getting his important sleep on some couch in Brentwood Forest in Brentwood, Missouri. And he kept staying there through the playoffs, through the National League Championship Series. The MVP of the NLCS is sleeping on a couch and stays there through the World Series. And after the game was over, Freese, after all the fun stuff in the locker room and Busch Stadium, the clubhouse, he went back to where he was living at the time, at this apartment, Dan Krieghauser's apartment in Brentwood Forest. And this is a story that I hadn't heard, this part of it. And basically everyone in St. Louis that wanted to go out and party was out and partying that night. The Cardinals won game 6. They will now play for game 7 the next day. And everybody's at the bars and they're drinking beers and they're doing the whole thing. And at like whatever it was, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., Dan Krieghauser and a couple of his buddies come into the house. They open the door, and who's sitting there on the couch? David Freese. He's just watching TV. And we're like, the entire city of St. Louis is out celebrating you. And we have just returned home, and here are you. Here is you. Excuse my grammar. Here is you just sitting here. It's just kind of like a weird thing. Like, you did it, man. You're the one that led to all this chaos in town. And he was like, yeah, I'm pretty tired though. We gotta still win tomorrow and the whole thing. And so I just love that image of the guy opening the door after celebrating David Freese, and there sitting on the couch is David Freese. Of course, they had to win Game 7. Tony La Russa, the manager of the team. Incidentally, I mentioned the last second change to the foreword in the book. The title is 11 and 11, but underneath here we have a couple words. We have 11 and 11, a hometown hero, La Russa's last ride in red, and a miracle World Series for the St. Louis Cardinals. Now, that actually wasn't the title when we turned the book in. It was just simply a hometown hero, La Russa's last ride, a miracle World Series. But right when the book was due to the publisher, Tony La Russa, after all these years of being retired, decides to come back to baseball and manage the Chicago White Sox. He's currently the manager of the Chicago White Sox. So we're like, what do we do? It says La Russa's last ride, but it's not his last ride. He's currently riding in Chicago. So we added in red, La Russa's last ride in red. Whew, saved our Tookuses there because that could have been terrible. But yeah, so La Russa, excuse my hair. La Russa tells the team the story of the 1980 hockey team from the Olympics. And if you recall, and you might know the story, but Team USA, they beat Russia, one of the greatest sporting events of all time. But if you don't know, I mean, you're like, I know the story, Benjamin. I know the story. You don't have to tell me. But maybe one person here doesn't know the story, so I'm going to tell it. That game wasn't to win the gold medal. It was to advance to the gold medal game. So Russia loses, USA wins. And even though they beat the top team, Russia, USA still had to defeat Finland in the gold medal game, or else they wouldn't have won the gold medal. And it wouldn't have had the same luster, pun intended, if they had won the silver. So they had to beat Finland to take that Russia win and make that as great as it was, if that makes sense. So they did, and they beat Finland. And it's the same thing with the Cardinals. The David Freese heroics was something that even if they had lost Game 7, we would always remember. But because they won Game 7 also, because the Cardinals beat Finland in Game 7, then it all comes together. And it truly makes for one of the greatest baseball stories of all time. And it really was one of the greatest World Series ever. It really was one of the consider the fact that Albert Pujols hit 3 home runs in a World Series game like he's Reggie Jackson or something. And 45 minutes into talking about this, I haven't even brought it up. You know, if we're talking about the 77 World Series, it's in the first sentence, talking about, but there's so many other heroics by the Cardinals that something like that is almost like a footnote. It's just really, really special that the Cardinals could pull that off for St. Louis in that year. And of course it was Albert Pujols's probably most likely last time playing for the St. Louis Cardinals. I guess we never say never with anything now. He's on the dang Dodgers. He'll be playing against the Cardinals in a couple of weeks there in Los Angeles. But and of course it was Tony La Russa's last season as the manager of the St. Louis Cardinals. It was an end of an era, but it was also the beginning of an era. And I interviewed John Mozeliak, the general manager of the Cardinals, the president. Now he's the president of baseball operations. And he shared a lot of inside stories about that season, about how he was one of the few people that knew La Russa was going to retire. And Mozeliak, literally at Game 6, he was jotting down names. He was making a list of possible managerial replacements. And when David Freese hit the home run, he balls it up and throws it in the trash. Obviously, he had to make the list again the next day or later that week, but it was kind of a symbolic thing. Yeah. So what Mozeliak, the general manager, said in the book is he goes, because of David Freese, it kind of launched us into this. It made losing Pujols and La Russa a little easier because we were coming off the championship, and it kind of launched us into this next era. And if you recall, the Cardinals made the playoffs in 2012, 13, 14, and 15, and even went to the World Series in 13, but lost to Boston. So, 2011, it's really just one of the coolest sporting seasons ever. And I was honored to write a book about it. Again, it's 11 and 11. I have the website, 11and11book.com. It's easy to navigate if you'd like to order a copy. Oh, there's the website right there. So you would literally just click that button that says order here on 11and11book.com. And you can just, if you want me to sign it to somebody, to a father for Father's Day, happy to do it. It's my honor. Yeah, so that's the book. And I don't know if anybody might have any questions or anything about the Cardinals, about the World Series, or about the current Cardinals, or about the Blues. Ooh, down 2 games in the playoffs already. But I'm happy to answer any questions here. Judith, if you can.
I'm here. And yeah, if anyone has a question, okay. Vernon, I'm not sure if your first name, if you want to unmute. You were waving at the screen, I believe.
Well, Ben, while there's a lull there, just want to say, I wish you'd come out of your shell and not be such an introvert. You know?
Maybe one of these days, Myron, one of these days I'll come out of my
Anyway,
shell.
I have kind of a personal story. The last game of the NLCS in Milwaukee, my son who lives in Chicago was there, and David Freese, as we've been talking about, in the very first inning, hit a 3-run homer. And on the video, the World Series video, there he is cheering with his friends at the game. I mean, that was a great time for us too. So that's another David Freese story there.
You should have him, I guess the phrase would be screenshot. You should have him screenshot himself from that video and then print it out and put it in a frame on the wall. That's really cool.
That is kind of cool.
Yeah. Good stuff. Go ahead, Judith.
It is a great book, Ben. Glad you wrote it.
Thanks, man.
Sandy, do you have a question? And then Stan?
Yeah, thank you. Ben, hi, I met you at Sportsman's on your birthday at lunch a couple
Jeff
weeks ago, if you remember. Yeah. My son, not a little background, he played a lot of high school baseball and he was very good. Played in Slava, which was the St. Louis Amateur Baseball Association, made all-star teams and several times. I had never, ever heard of David Freese in high school or anything amateur until he got to the World Series, until he got to the majors. Can you tell me something about his back? What happened back then? He was never around at all. He went to Lafayette High School, but
he was good. He was really good, but he wasn't like a Max Scherzer or one of these just phenoms, one of these phenomenal players. And David Freese was, he was just, I mean, every year, if I may, every year there's 4 or 5 guys, 8 or 10 guys that are college bound or draft bound out of St. Louis. And he was just kind of, I mean, I'm making it sound like it's an amazing accomplishment being in that 8 or 10 guys. I was like in the 800 guys. And I've made this joke before, I think on this call, but my name's Ben. I can't believe none of my teammates at Clayton High none of them made this connection, because I would have called myself the Bendoza line, because I was always hitting like 195, under 200. So I dodged that bullet because that would have been an easy joke to make. But so Freese was great, but he wasn't like front page of the paper on with Frank Cusimano great, if that makes sense. So he had scholarship offers, and the University of Missouri wanted him. And I even interviewed the coach of Mizzou for the book because he wanted Freese to play for Mizzou. Freese did go to Mizzou, but not as a baseball player, just went as a regular student. And so the coach is like, I got one of the best players in St. Louis at my school, but not on my team. But to your point, you're right. There wasn't like this buzz, like this next superstar is coming out of Lafayette High School. But then sure enough, David Freese, of course, did the World Series stuff. And let's not forget the next year, he was an all-star, a major league all-star. So he became a legitimate big-time ball player.
I'm sorry, my phone was ringing just as you were finishing up your discussion there. I'm sorry about that. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I didn't hear the phone.
Good.
Hopefully it's an important call.
No, my wife.
That's an important call.
She wants to know where I am. Thank you, Ben.
So,
Dan?
yes, so Ben, I don't know, you always have that presentation that helps everybody not only stay up, but smile. Did you have a book signing on this book?
Not yet. Not yet. With COVID and everything, I haven't really set up anything, but I will this summer set up numerous events. So I apologize, I don't have a specific time right now for you. If you wanted a signed copy easily through the website, and I can do that. But you know what? I can talk to Judith and be in touch. We can get in touch with you, and the minute we know about a book signing, we'll let you know, and hopefully we can meet in person.
We'd be happy to.
Be great. I want to send it as a gift to someone special. We were at the game.
Oh,
Precinct, both of them, both games, and we couldn't believe it. We had 9-year-old grandchildren who were there watching it. He'll never forget that game in his life. So
yeah. Well, Judith and I will be in touch with you in the coming weeks, and we'll make this happen.
okay, you got it.
Yeah, definitely.
Harvey? Wait, you gotta unmute yourself, Harvey.
Would you give us an update on what you think of the Cardinals this year?
Sure. Let's see. Turn it off. So Harvey, the Cardinals this year, I'm pretty optimistic about these guys. There's a lot to like, right? When you have two big bats, and I know Paul Goldschmidt isn't playing at Paul Goldschmidt level just yet, but when you have two big bats in the middle of the lineup like they do with Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt, that strikes fear in the other team. But of course, you need people to get on base first, and you got Tommy Edman and you got Dylan Carlson. They're both switch hitters, so you always get the matchup you want with those guys, and they're getting on base, right? So it's been a lot of fun to watch them manufacture runs. You could argue also about this current Cardinals team, and you can argue, so maybe I'm going to say something and someone wants to argue back, but you could argue it's the best defensive team the St. Louis Cardinals have ever had. Now, I know. Kurt Flood was really good in center field, they say. I know this, but we know Jim Edmonds, and of course, Ozzie, but I'm talking about all 8 of these guys out there. When you look at the defensive prowess of each of the players, you could argue that this is the best fielding team the Cardinals have ever had. And in this era of run prevention, or at least offense is trying to prevent runs, the Cardinals are trying to have them hit the ball to their guys, and they're making great plays. This, of course, though, to talk more to your question, is an era of strikeouts. And the St. Louis Cardinals have some great pitchers, but they're not a strikeout staff. And like I said, they want to prevent runs by allowing the other team to hit the ball to their great defenders who will make plays. But the hitters in modern baseball have changed their swings to where they're fine with swinging and missing. They're fine with swinging and missing, knowing that the way their swing is, it's going to hit eventually. And when it does, it's at the angle that they can hit a home run or a deep ball for maybe a double. That's kind of the mindset of the modern hitter, the strategy of the modern hitter. So the other team wants to counter it with strikeouts. And the Cardinals, they get a few strikeouts, don't get me wrong, but they're not among the league leaders in that. So that's going to be a storyline to watch as we go forward into this season. But yeah, right now, sitting there in first place, playing good baseball, Cubs coming to town. There's a lot of optimism regarding Nolan Arenado, my buddy, who here in Cardinals.
We have time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions, comments.
I really
Robert
appreciate.
Braun, I think Robert. I'm sorry, Rob. I think Robert Braun. Do you have a question?
Yeah, first, I got your book. You signed it. For myself and my fraternity brother from UMSL that was at the game.
Cool.
And I think you're right. It's, for many of us, it's the most amazing baseball experience we've ever had. And I remember screaming, I can't believe what we just saw.
Yeah.
It was the best. So thank you for memorializing it. Thank you. I look forward to reading it.
I appreciate it. That made my day just seeing you holding that there. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to write a book. This sounds kind of cheesy, but I wanted to write a book for St. Louis, for the fans, for people like my dad and my mom that are from here and just love stories about their team. So I hope you all enjoy it.
I'm from here. I'm from St. Louis, but I live in Washington, D.C. I flew in for it.
Oh my gosh. Well, hope maybe the Cardinals can pluck a certain pitcher from Washington, D.C.'s baseball team this August and get Max Scherzer back home for the match. That'd be kind of fun.
John?
Ben, talking about pitching, you want to comment on the Cardinals pitching staff, and particularly the relief pitching? It's not like what we thought it would be. I don't think it is. It's kind of scary at times.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned the strikeouts and how they're not doing a lot of strikeouts. Well, what they are doing a lot of is walks, and that's infuriating. And I mean, you got to give Alex Reyes credit because he gets it done. He might walk a guy every time he's out there, but we can't start pointing fingers at him until he blows a save. And if I'm right, he's 13 for 13 so far this year. But some of these other fellas, they're walking too many batters. Tyler Webb, what's going on with him? Genesis Cabrera, he's hitting batters. Yeah, I mean, discipline from your relief pitchers is important, is imperative. And the reality is the Cardinals bullpen is good, not great right now. Hopefully for them, they will figure out a way. And maybe when Hicks gets back, if he returns this season, I don't know if he will, maybe that'll be something. But he was walking dudes when he was playing. So, yeah, stay, as they say in regards to a roller coaster, stay strapped in for the final innings of a Cardinal game.
Thank you.
I think, let's see. Maury says, thanks, Ben, for refreshing our incredible memories. Regards, your mom, Maury.
My mom was a history and English teacher in the Parkway School District, so maybe they connected that way.
So thank you so much. This was very exciting. We are
Oh,
so
yeah.
happy to have you back, and we will keep everyone posted on if you have a live book signing, you'll let me know, and we'll be happy to pass that information along. So thank you so much, and I'm so happy that you've got this book out, and I'm going to have to get one and have you sign it.
That would be awesome. Thank you all for listening to the talk today. Have a great rest of the week and weekend.